You crack 2 eggs into a hot pan, the way you've done 10,000 mornings, and you never once think it could be quietly straining the two organs that keep you alive after 70, that pan, that heat, that little pinch of salt you add without looking. Those small habits are doing more damage to your kidneys than the egg itself ever could. And here's the part that stops me cold. My grandmother, who never read a single nutrition label in her life, cooked eggs in a way that protected her kidneys without her even knowing why. We used to know this. Somehow we forgot. And what we forgot got buried under nonstick pans, protein powders, and breakfast advice sold by people who never sat at a farmhouse table. By the end of this, I'll show you a method for eggs that comes straight out of a home economics bulletin from the 1940s, tested again by university researchers in our own time, and it works in any kitchen you already own, with the same eggs already in your refrigerator. No gadgets, no supplements, just the thing we quietly lost. I need to tell you something first, because I lived on the wrong side of this for years. I spent most of my life believing the newer way had to be the smarter way. I bought the fancy pan. I chased the high-protein breakfast. I fried my eggs hard and fast because that's what everybody around me did. And the whole time, something felt off, though I couldn't name it. Then I sat down with a stack of old cooking manuals my mother left behind, and I started reading the way people cooked before the war, and I felt something close to embarrassment. Because the answers were right there. Plain, cheap, forgotten on purpose, as I'd later understand. So let me start with the first mistake, the one almost everybody over 70 makes before the sun is even fully up. The first mistake is the heat. The screaming, sizzling, high heat we treat as normal. I remember my grandmother's stove, cast iron, low flame, and she never rushed an egg in her life. She'd slide an egg into a pan that was warm, not blazing, and she'd let it come together slow, almost lazy. I thought she cooked that way because she was old and patient. I know now she cooked that way because that's how she was taught and how her mother was taught before her. Here's what nobody told me until I went digging. When you cook an egg at very high heat, especially frying it hard until the edges go brown and crisp, you create compounds scientists call advanced glycation end products. Researchers shorten that to a word that sounds almost like a warning. They call them AGEs. These AGEs form when protein and fat meet high, dry heat, and your kidneys are the organ stuck with the job of filtering them out of your blood. When you're 30, your kidneys shrug it off. When you're 75, they don't. A landmark study published by researchers at the Mount Sinai School of Medicine, going back to work they began in the late 1990s, found that the way you cook a food can multiply its AGE content many times over. The same egg, cooked 2 different ways, one gentle on your kidneys, one hard on them. A fried egg cooked hot can carry several times the AGE load of an egg cooked slow and moist, several times, from nothing more than the temperature of your pan. My grandmother never read that study. She died long before it was written. But her low flame and her patient hand were doing exactly what that research would later prove. She was protecting her kidneys with nothing but a habit. So the fix is almost insultingly simple. Turn the heat down. Cook your eggs low and slow. If you fry, keep the flame gentle and never let the egg go brown and crackling at the edges. Better yet, add a little moisture. And that brings me to the very thing modern breakfast quietly abandoned. Because there's a second mistake, and it's the mistake of dry heat itself. Water. We forgot water. Think about how people cooked eggs 100 years ago. Poached, boiled, coddled in a little cup set in simmering water, soft scrambled with a splash of milk over low heat. Every one of those methods uses water or moisture, and every one of them keeps the temperature down where AGEs can't run wild. Then the nonstick pan arrived in American kitchens in the early 1960s, and everything changed. Suddenly, the fashion was the dry fry. No fat needed, they said, no water needed. Just crank the heat and go. It was faster, it was cleaner, and it quietly walked us away from the gentle, moist cooking our grandmothers relied on. I want you to picture a poached egg for a second. The white just set, the yolk still soft, cooked in nothing but water at a temperature that never climbs past boiling. That egg carries a fraction of the harmful compounds of a hard fried one. The United States Department of Agriculture has published nutrient data on eggs for decades, and the plain truth is the egg is one of the most complete, affordable proteins a person over 70 can eat. One large egg gives you around 6 grams of high quality protein for roughly 20 to 30 cents. The problem was never the egg, the problem is what we started doing to it. So here's your second fix, and you can use it tomorrow morning. Bring back water, poach your eggs, soft boil them, scramble them low and slow with a splash of milk or even a spoonful of water, stirring gentle, taking your time. You'll cut the AGE load, you'll go easier on your kidneys, and I promise you the egg tastes better than the rubbery brown thing we've been sold as normal. But moisture and low heat only solve half the problem. Because there's something we add to eggs out of pure habit that hits the kidneys harder than the cooking ever could. The third mistake is the salt, and not the salt you think. I can still see the salt cellar on my grandmother's table. A small glass dish with a tiny spoon. She used it, sure, but here's what I only understood years later. She salted at the table, a pinch at the end, on top, where you could taste it. She did not dump salt into the pan, into the eggs, into everything the way we do now. That difference matters more than almost anything else in this whole story. Your kidneys and your blood pressure are tied together like two ends of the same rope. When sodium climbs, your kidneys work harder to filter it, and after 70, those filters are already doing their job with less reserve than they had at 40. Now here's the number that should stop you. The average older American eats well past the recommended limit of sodium every single day, and most of it doesn't come from the salt shaker at all. It comes from what's already inside the food. And when it comes to eggs, the danger isn't the fresh egg. It's the salt we bury it under, and worse, the eggs that come pre-salted before they ever reach your plate. I'm talking about the packaged breakfast, the frozen egg patty, the powdered egg mix. The egg products sold in a carton with a long list on the side. My grandmother never ate a single one of those because they didn't exist. She ate an egg, just an egg. So salt at the table, not in the pan. Taste it on your tongue where a little does a lot, instead of dissolving a lot where you can't taste it at all. That one change, and I mean this, can take real strain off kidneys that have earned a little mercy. And that leads me straight into the fourth mistake, the one hiding inside those cartons and boxes I just mentioned. The fourth mistake is trusting the egg that comes in a package instead of a shell. Somewhere along the way, we were told the whole egg was the enemy. Too much cholesterol, they warned, back in the 1980s, and a whole industry rushed in to sell us the fix. Liquid eggs in cartons, egg substitutes, powders, patties you microwave, all promising to save us from the very food our grandparents thrived on. Here's what almost nobody told you. Many of those processed egg products are loaded with added sodium and phosphate additives to keep them stable on the shelf. And phosphate additives are one of the single worst things you can put in front of aging kidneys. Let me explain why, because this is the part that changed how I shop. There are two kinds of phosphorus in food. The kind that occurs naturally, like the phosphorus inside a real egg yolk, and the kind that's added by manufacturers as a preservative or a stabilizer. Your body absorbs the natural kind at a modest rate, somewhere around 40 to 60%. But the added kind, the kind hiding in processed foods under names that end in the word phosphate, your body absorbs almost all of it, close to 100%. Kidney specialists have been sounding the alarm about this for years. The National Kidney Foundation has plainly warned that these phosphate additives are a hidden danger precisely because they're absorbed so completely and because they don't always show up clearly on the label. A real egg from a shell has no added phosphates. Um, a processed egg product very well might. So, my grandmother, cooking from a shell every single morning, was avoiding a kidney threat that wouldn't even be invented until decades after she passed. Think about how many mornings are still ahead of you and how much strain those aging filters carry with every single meal you can't quite decode. That's exactly why the author put together the Senior Health Clarity System, a practical 3-volume set delivered straight to your email that finally settles the eggs, cholesterol, and 50 years of argument once and for all, and shows you how to read your own EGFR and creatinine numbers the way your doctor should have explained them, so you can track and protect your kidneys yourself. It closes the dangerous nutritional gaps most seniors never even see, all without expensive drugs or risky procedures. And here's something you can test for free this very night. Go grab any processed egg carton in your kitchen and read the ingredient list out loud, looking for any word ending in phosphate, then compare it to a plain egg in the shell, which has none of that added in. You just prove to yourself what these books teach across 557 pages of real content. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. Your doctor only gets 12 minutes with you, and this collection gives you the other 23 hours and 48 minutes, the part nobody else covers. Now, speaking of avoiding threats hiding in your kitchen, let me show you the next mistake, because it steals something far more precious than you'd guess. Not because she was clever about chemistry, because she never let a middleman touch her breakfast. The fix here costs you nothing and actually saves you money. Buy the egg in the shell, skip the carton, skip the powder, skip the patty. A dozen real eggs cost less than most of those processed substitutes anyway. You get more protein, less sodium, 0 added phosphates, and an egg that would be recognizable to every generation that came before you. Now, I know what some of you are thinking right about now. You're thinking this all sounds fine for somebody with a big kitchen, good hands, and plenty of time to fuss over a poached egg. Maybe you live alone. Maybe your hands don't work the way they used to. Maybe standing at the stove is harder than it once was. I want to talk directly to you now, because the next part is built for exactly your situation. You do not need a fancy kitchen or steady hands or anyone's help to do this. Here is the simplest kidney-gentle egg method I know, and I learned the bones of it from a home economics pamphlet printed during the war years, when women were taught to cook eggs with the least fuss and the least waste possible. Take a cup, a mug, any cup you already own. Crack 1 egg into it, add a tablespoon of water or milk, beat it lightly with a fork, just enough to break it up. Now, put that cup in the microwave for about 30 seconds. Take it out, stir it once, and put it back for another 20 to 30 seconds until it's just set. That's it. You've made a soft, moist, kidney-gentle scrambled egg with no pan, no stove, no high heat, no oil, and no standing on your feet. The moisture keeps the temperature low. The short cooking keeps those AGE compounds from ever forming. There's no browning, no crisping, no burnt edge. And you can do the whole thing sitting down, one-handed, in under a minute, with nothing but a cup and a fork you already have. If you can't manage the microwave timing, here's an even older trick: coddling. Fill a heat-proof cup with an egg. Set that cup in a bowl of just boiled water from your kettle, cover it with a small plate, and walk away for 10 minutes. The gentle warmth of the water sets the egg slow and soft. That method is over 100 years old. There were special little egg coddler cups sold for it back in the 1890s, and the reason it survived so long is simple. It works, it's gentle, and anyone can do it. So please don't tell yourself this knowledge is for someone else. It was designed from the very beginning for people who needed the easiest possible way to eat well. That's the whole point of what we lost. But even after you fix the heat, the water, the salt, and the package, there's a fifth mistake that has nothing to do with cooking at all. It's about how many and how often. The fifth mistake is the pileup, the mountain of eggs we're told to eat in the name of protein. I watch people my age chase protein now like it's the last life raft. 3 eggs, 4 eggs, egg white omelets the size of a dinner plate, protein shakes on top of that, and I understand the fear. We're told our muscles waste away after 70, and they can, so people panic and overload. Here's the memory that grounds me. My grandmother ate 1 egg, maybe 2, not a heap, and she lived long and sharp and steady on her feet into her late 80s. She wasn't starving herself. She was eating in proportion, the way people did before food became a competition. Now here's the kidney truth underneath it. Protein is essential, especially for older muscles. But every gram of protein your body processes leaves behind waste that your kidneys must filter, chiefly a compound called urea. When your kidneys are young and strong, they clear it easily. When they've aged, or when they're already weakened, a constant flood of excess protein makes them work overtime day after day, year after year. I'm not telling you to fear the egg. I'm telling you the yolk holds most of that natural phosphorus I mentioned, and the whole egg holds protein your kidneys must process. For most healthy older folks, 1 or 2 eggs a day is a fine, even excellent choice. But the person eating 4 and 5 eggs every morning on top of shakes and bars is asking aging kidneys to run a race they were never asked to run. There's a specific detail here worth knowing. If your kidneys are already under strain, many kidney specialists suggest leaning on the egg white, which is nearly pure protein with very little phosphorus, and going easier on the yolk. 1 whole egg plus 1 or 2 extra whites gives you strong protein with a lighter phosphorus load. That's not a modern hack. That's just understanding what each part of the egg actually carries. So the fix is proportion. Eat the egg, enjoy the egg. But treat it as food, not as fuel you're forcing down by the pound. 1 or 2, cooked gentle, is plenty for most. Your kidneys will thank you with years. And that word, years, brings me to the 6th mistake, because this one steals them quietly. The 6th mistake is the pairing. What we insist on eating alongside our eggs, picture the classic breakfast we were all sold. Eggs and bacon, eggs and sausage, eggs and ham, with a side of hash browns fried in the same greasy pan. That plate didn't come from our grandparents' farms. It came from advertising. It was marketed hard in the middle of the 20th century until we all believed eggs and cured meat belonged together like a married couple. Here's the problem your kidneys feel. Bacon, sausage, ham, and every cured breakfast meat is a sodium bomb and a phosphate carrier all at once. Those meats are pumped full of salt and phosphate additives to cure and preserve them. So you take your beautiful, harmless egg and you park it next to the single worst kidney offender on the breakfast menu. The egg gets the blame. The processed meat did the damage. I remember what actually sat next to eggs on my grandmother's table. Sliced tomato. A little fried potato she cooked herself, not from a bag. Bread she baked. Sometimes just an apple. There was no daily slab of cured meat, because cured meat was a once-in-a-while thing, a treat, not a fixture. So here's a fix that will genuinely surprise you with how much better you feel. Pair your egg with something from the ground instead of something from a package. Sliced tomato, sautéed spinach. A little onion and pepper, half an avocado, whole fruit. You keep the sodium down, you keep the phosphates out, and you add potassium and fiber that most older folks don't get enough of. The egg was never the villain. The company we made it keep was. By now, you might be sensing the shape of the whole thing. Every single one of these mistakes has the same fingerprint. Somebody, somewhere, made money by convincing us the simple old way was inferior. The nonstick pan sold the dry fry. The food companies sold the carton and the powder. The advertisers sold the bacon beside the egg, and the supplement sellers sold the protein pile-up. Each one nudged us a little further from the plain, gentle, cheap way our grandparents just knew. Which brings me to the seventh mistake, and this is the one almost no one talks about, the one I nearly missed myself. The seventh mistake is throwing away the water, and I mean that literally. When you boil eggs, what do you do with the water afterward? You pour it down the drain, don't you? I did too for 60 some years, without a second thought. And I only learned different from a footnote in an old agricultural extension bulletin that stopped me in my tracks. Now, I want to be careful and honest with you here, because this is where the surprise lives. The gentle old wisdom wasn't about drinking the egg water. It was about something much smarter, and it points to the deeper lesson of this whole story. Let me build it for you properly, because it's the payoff you stayed for. Go back with me to a home economics bulletin published by a state agricultural college in the 1940s, in the thick of wartime rationing, when not one scrap of food was allowed to go to waste. Those bulletins taught American households a principle we have almost completely lost. The principle was this: the gentlest way to cook the most delicate, most valuable protein, the egg, is the way that wastes the least of it and strains the eater the least. And the champion method they taught, the one that beats every modern gadget, was the humble, hard-cooked egg, made correctly. Here's the correct way, and this is the secret finale, the thing nobody shares. You do not boil an egg hard. That's the mistake baked into the very name. Boiling an egg at a hard rolling boil is high, violent heat, and it does three things wrong. It toughens the protein, it produces that gray-green ring around the yolk, which is a sign of overcooking and sulfur reaction, and it drives up the very compounds we've been trying to avoid. Instead, you do what that wartime bulletin called the covered standing method, and what your great-grandmother simply called doing it right. Place your eggs in a pot. Cover them with cold water, about an inch above the eggs. Put the pot on the heat and bring it just to the very start of a boil, the first sign of bubbles. Then, the moment it reaches that point, you turn off the heat completely. You cover the pot with a lid, and you walk away and let the eggs sit in that hot water for exactly 12 to 15 minutes. That's it. The residual heat cooks the egg perfectly through, gently, with no violent boiling, no toughening, no gray ring, and the lowest possible load of those kidney-straining compounds. The egg comes out tender, the yolk comes out golden, never green, and you've used the least energy, the least fuss, and the gentlest heat of any method there is. This is the method that got buried. Everyone today says boil your eggs, crank the heat, set a timer, let it rage. The old bulletin knew better 80 years ago. Turn the heat off. Let the still water do the work. It costs nothing. It uses a pot you already own. And it's gentler on your kidneys than any high heat method, backed by the same AGE science from Mount Sinai that we started with. And here's the part that ties the whole memory together. When you cook this way, low and slow, off the heat, with water and patience, you are doing exactly what people did before packaged food, before the dry fry pan, before the protein craze, before the phosphate additive was ever invented. Every gentle method in this whole video, the poach, the coddle, the microwave cup, the covered standing egg, they all share one grandmother simple idea. Keep the heat low. Keep the water close. Keep the food whole. Let time do what heat cannot. That's what we forgot. Not a product, not a supplement. A way of treating food and ourselves, with a little more patience and a lot less violence. I think about my grandmother's kitchen now every single morning. The warm pan never scorching. The little cup of water beside the stove. The salt cellar she reached for last, not first. She never knew the word phosphate. She never heard of an advanced glycation end product. But she protected her kidneys, her heart, and her long, steady years with nothing but habits her own mother handed down. And we let those habits slip away because someone convinced us that faster, hotter, and packaged was better. It wasn't. It never was. So here's what you really recovered today. Not 7 rules about eggs. You recovered the quiet confidence that the simple old way, the one you may have watched your own grandmother use, was right all along, and that you can pick it back up this very week with nothing you don't already own. You're the kind of person who trusts what actually works over what's merely sold to you. You always were. That's why you're still here at the end while everyone else scrolled past. And the good news is, everything you need is already in your kitchen and already in your hands. Now I want to hear from you, because your memory matters as much as mine. Tell me this. When you were young, how did the person who raised you cook their eggs? Was it a slow pan, a poached egg, a coddling cup, or something I didn't even mention? Leave it in the comments, because between all of us, we can rescue the methods the books forgot. And tell me where you're watching from, too. I love knowing how far this old kitchen wisdom still travels. If you believe, like I do, that the simplest forgotten methods are worth saving before they disappear for good, then come along with the rest of us who are quietly reclaiming this lost everyday knowledge, one habit at a time. There's a whole community of us now, and we're just getting started. Because next, I want to show you the truth about the one drink almost every person over 70 reaches for in the morning, the one we were told was good for us, that may be working against those same kidneys in a way you'd never suspect. It's sitting in your cupboard right now, and once you see what our grandparents drank instead, you won't look at your morning the same way again. Before you go, let me say one thing. Inside my membership, the Wise Living Circle, I walk you through the full egg method, picking up right where this video stopped. And if anything's unclear, you can ask me directly, and a real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone either. Folks like you are already there. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen, and you can cancel anytime. Now that you know the truth about eggs, let me show you something just as important. There's one simple mistake with magnesium that so many folks over 70 make, and a $1 fix that could truly protect you. It's starting right now.